Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show.
Snowpiercer is a TV show based on a movie that came out a few years ago. It's all about a giant train that's 1,001 cars long and just keeps travelling round a frozen world. Episode 5, Justice Never Boarded, follows on from last week, with Layton still in the drawer where he's in his induced coma, having dreams about the cannibal massacre that he mentioned a few episodes ago. And Josie and the Tailies are still worried about him, so Josie has a big plan where she goes to meet up with Astrid, and they do a bit of a clothes swapsy, counting on the fact that the guards and nobody else really can tell them apart. And then she goes in to meet the janitor Kingpin, and he agrees to help her break into the drawers room while everyone's distracted by the big murder trial. But when they get there, the janitors nick some meds and then they skedaddle, leaving Josie with the keys, and after a bit faffing about, she finally opens up the drawer that has Layton in it. And just then, Till and Oz happen by, and they find her hiding in Layton's drawer, and Oz goes absolutely batshit on her, and then Till clocks him in the head with a stick. After that, Josie and Till manage to get Layton off to Zara and split up, but when Till gets back, Oz isn't there anymore. Meanwhile, the main event in Snowpiercer is LJ's trial, and there's a lot of kerfuffle afoot, because the firsties naturally just want this all to go away, but the thirties all want a guilty verdict, and the rules of Snowpiercer are that only firsts and seconds get to be on the jury. So to keep the peace, Melanie agrees to let a thirdie be on the jury, and then it's trial time, and various people give lots of accounts of things, and it's all kinda damning. But then when crazy LJ finally goes on the stand, first she plays up a big sob story, and then she says, "I know all the dead guy's secrets, wink wink, he was a spy." And after that, it's verdict time, and surprisingly, it's actually a unanimous guilty verdict. But Melanie's got an ace up her sleeve, and has her man up at the front send a note from Mr. Wilford, saying that the sentence is going to be commuted. But of course, Melanie knows that this is a deal with the devil, and although LG promises to keep Stum, you just know that it isn't going to go well for anybody in the long run. So what did I think? Well, I'll say this for it, if nothing else, this show manages to keep itself going, and keeps itself vaguely entertaining. And this week was definitely better than last week's. If this episode and nothing else, it definitely benefited from not actually having Layton smirking his way around every single scene, and actually letting the other actors breathe a little and do their thing. And I liked some of the stuff they did this week with, for example, the show and tell stuff, what they did with LJ, because they showed this whole scene where she was being creepy as hell, and her dad popped out a fake eye and let her play with it by putting it in her mouth and pretending it was an eye in her mouth, and then he's like, pop, and he just puts it back in. That whole scene was so bizarre that it actually made you understand, without really saying anything, quite how cosseted and spoilt she is, like in every single way, and quite how weird her parents are as well. And then they back that up by actually having the mum tell Melanie the story about how it was LG who actually just, broke his eye in the first place by stabbing it with a fork. Even then, they just never said no to the kid. This is a kid who's literally never heard no in her life, and that's why she's a complete psychopath. And it's also good to see a little bit more politics at play, with the idea of like the night car and how they said that that's supposed to be neutral ground between all the different parts of the train. And it's interesting seeing the idea that third needs representation, and it's actually going to get some, only for Melanie to brick it at the end with this whole fake note from Wilford that kind of rendered everything mood, and the only people actually made happy were the Richies, who effectively made the entire rest of the train furious, which is really interesting because it really makes you wonder about exactly how the economy of this train actually functions, because sure, those rich people paid for the train in the first place, but what do they actually contribute to it now? They're probably the biggest drain on resources and do the actual least amount of stuff. So there's definitely some stoking of some serious fire revolution going on here. And it was nice that we got a bit more of Till and the Jinju stuff, because, with those pair getting married and Till moving up to second. And that gives you also a little bit of a view into how the social side of things work, and that people can move up and down through the class stratospheres, especially through marriage. But it also sets up the fact that Till's actions could now be adversely affecting the pair of them, because, if she's just clocked Oz around the head, then maybe that's going to get both of them moved down to third, which would be a big problem for Melanie, because obviously Jinju looks after all the fish and makes all the sushi. But that also goes to highlight exactly the problem with this show's convenient writing. It's awfully convenient that it's the same week that she gets married and moved up to second that she ends up having to assault another brakeman and helps free in Layton. Not that I think the train's economy and social structure is actually going to last that much longer with all the class resentment that's going on, and also the fact that we're now 5 episodes into a 10-episode season. So we should basically be getting far on the way, and it looks like it's going to be a major big revolution type thing happening. And as much as the whole trial this week was kind of fun, it also felt a bit like a waste of time, a bit like peddling water, with Melanie inexplicably throwing the game at the last minute, Which is kind of crazy if you think about it. I don't know. I don't understand what she hoped to gain from doing that. I mean, just did she think that LG was just going to start screaming out secrets in the middle of the trial? I mean, maybe she was. But she could have just had LG boxed and executed right there and then. I mean, I can't really see the wee ginger psycho being on the show much longer anyway. I mean, if anybody's going to get dead soon, seriously. On the other story, the B story, I mean, Astrid and Josie, I mean, they do kind of look similar, which is handy, but they don't look that similar. And also that they felt the need to have her say, they can't tell us apart, was really a bit clunky. Like, because obviously the audience hadn't realised. I'm not saying the show is written predominantly for stupid people, but I think it was written by stupid people. And I don't think they're trusting the audience to actually do a little bit of legwork. But when Josie actually gets into the car with all the drawers in it, she faffs around rather than just looking in the drawers. I mean, there was a bit and then it cut away to something else and then it come back and she's still just like randomly looking at clipboards rather than just opening the drawers with the keys. Because you would think that's the first thing she's going to do because there isn't that many drawers in there. Now, honestly, she's a vet, so why on earth is she just yanking like tubes straight out the guy when he's in a coma? I mean, surely that's a bad idea. I mean, I suppose you could argue that because she's a vet, maybe she knows a bit more, and maybe she knows, because she did inject him with something, so maybe she knows how to pull somebody out of that. But that seems surprising because this is supposed to be sort of experimental technology, and even the doctor who actually runs it doesn't seem to wholly understand how it works. And also, just to reiterate, the guy playing Layton, he still can't act, honestly. He can't even act like he's in a coma, not to mention like the really crappy flashbacks. I mean, I liked the idea of this story. I thought it was cheesy and fun when he told it. It was kind of almost like a joke. But the way they've shown it here, I mean, it just looks tacky and cheap and rubbish. It looks amateur theatre brigade kind of stuff. I mean, yeah. But one interesting thing to come out of this week was that I have a theory. You see, I mentioned a couple of episodes that Sean Bean is obviously going to be back in the show later on. They've announced that already. And I reckon that Mr. Wilford is actually in cryosleep or in a coma or some kind of thing. And I reckon the whole drawer thing is probably some kind of experiment to see if they can try and wake him up safely again. I mean, that's just my theory at this stage, but that would actually fit, especially if he's going to suddenly materialise out of nowhere next season. But that's all I've got for this week's episode. And it continues to be a show that's kind of dredging the bottom of sci-fi trash TV while still be watchable. And if you haven't seen it yet, I have put up my latest movies by month episode. Now, that's obviously the one where I look at all the films I've seen in a particular month, and the one I've just done is March, because I am running a few months behind. But there will be a link at the end, so check that out if you fancy some recommendations for films I thought were good. Until next time, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions. And as always, a great big thank you to all my patrons and everyone watching, and especially to Judith Coloma and Michelle Forbes, who are my top tier patrons. So your support absolutely helps me out, guys. Thank you for everyone for watching. Everybody take care and stay well. Bye bye now.